Birmingham, Michigan. And hello, and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined today by Bill Arsenault.
Hey, guys.
Bill Leon is not here.
I was about to say.
And Hawk Ripjaw.
Hello.
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 Yeah, what's that Seinfeld episode where he's like, hello?
Oh, I was thinking Medea.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
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 You never want to think about Medea.
No.
Unless a Medea movie is coming out, in which case I will go see it because I hate myself.
You've made a commitment to
I've made a commitment. It's kind of like watching The Cat in the Hat as many times as possible.
You've made a commitment, and he also should be committed.
That
As
reminds
long as
me,
they got movies.
That reminds me, Ken, did you ever actually watch The Cat in the Hat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. I'm sure
Yeah,
I probably forgot, but I mean.
We did a rabbit.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. There's another Dr. Seuss movie coming out this year, the new Grinch adaptation. And,
Boo.
Yeah, I know. Some people are booing it. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, I don't know.
The
Which isn't a
trailer
good
to
sign.
me just looks like shit. I'm sorry.
I think Illumination is not a very good company.
I don't know.
They're
Yeah.
a very profitable company.
Yes.
Yeah,
Those
they're
fucking
profitable.
minions.
So they're an
Just-
effective company. They're not a good company from a perspective of art.
Well, you know what? Uwe Boll made a return on investment with his movies, so I don't want to hear it.
I actually did he? I thought his movies were bombs. Not
No, he was able to
So-
make money back because of the German tax incentives.
Yeah, so there's this
But
tax
that eventually
loophole in
dried
Germany. Yeah, there's this tax loophole in Germany where basically if you invest your money into the movie and the movie does not make back the investment you made, then the government essentially pays you back for the money you lost.
I thought they had closed that, and that's why he stopped making movies.
That's exactly why he stopped making. He retired.
Didn't he claim it was over something else, though?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. He's like, oh, I'm just.
failed because no one wanted to give him any money.
It's
Yeah,
what?
it was because no one wanted to give him any more money. But I guess from what Hawk's saying, it's because the loophole's closed.
I mean, it's
so
probably
really it
both
was-
of those.
Yeah, Uwe Boll's weird. He's like a very sensitive guy, but he's also like a jerk.
And he also like challenged his critics to boxing matches, and because he was a boxer, he would usually win.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty
That's
sure he
fair.
always won.
Yeah, I mean, well,
probably
yeah, he
always
always
won,
did.
yeah.
I say usually because he wasn't always taken up on it. Like Michael Bay was trashing him, and Uwe Boll challenged him to a boxing match, and Michael Bay basically told him to go fuck himself.
Oh, the
Right.
irony.
What?
I said, oh, the irony.
I know, right?
That's, yeah.
Michael Bay. Yeah, it reminds me of my favorite. I think my favorite piece of trivia from Armageddon is that Ben Affleck asked Michael Bay. He said, "Wouldn't it make more sense to train astronauts to drill than it would be to train drillers to be astronauts?" And Michael Bay told him to shut the fuck up, get back to work.
That
basically.
commentary track by Ben Affleck on the Armageddon DVD is ridiculously funny. And
It's really good.
Ben's just like laughing at the whole thing, like this is so fucking stupid.
Didn't he get super high for that
He
commentary track
probably,
or something?
that would make sense if he did. He probably gets high a lot actually,
Probably.
or used to. Maybe I don't know. He's in rehab now, but
Oh, really?
that's
Yeah.
what I heard. Yeah, but that's more for alcoholism, I think,
Oh, I thought it was for Batman.
and maybe for
Whoa!
oh, I don't know. That's not funny though. If he's really going through some shit. You know,
Yeah,
it's-
no, it's bad. But
But yeah, I get. You know, it was kind of funny during the press tours for Batman v Superman and Justice League. He did not look happy.
no, he did not. I mean, the sad Affleck is a meme.
Sad Affleck thing is a meme, right? So he just looked like my old darkness. My old
Yeah, they asked him about I think it was like audience reception to Batman v Superman. And he just all of a sudden he like shut down and just started gazing off into the middle distance.
right.
It's a really weird interview.
It's really really weird stuff. Maybe the movie messed him up like it did with The Dark Knight. Like some people claim that Heath Ledger got messed up, which he didn't. Like people say on the set, he was a normal person. He wasn't like in character the entire time. But
Yeah.
Maybe it's like how Jared Leto got messed up. He was already messed up.
Jared Leto was not messed up by this movie. He was being a dick.
He was being a dick going into Suicide Squad. He wasn't a dick coming out of it. Or maybe he was too, but you get what I'm saying. I guess Ben Affleck suffered the most from out of anyone that's been in these DC movies, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of like real trauma, maybe. I don't know. But that's just mere speculation on our part.
Sure, yeah.
Trying to be funny.
In
reality,
Ben Affleck probably.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Ben Affleck probably got really invested in the role of Batman and Bruce Wayne, and was like, he wouldn't have taken the role unless he was very serious about the character. And Batman v Superman and probably really did a number on him in terms of his passion for the role and for the
probably for film
for all that. He was really excited to play Batman, and very few people liked either of those movies, so it probably was a big blow to him.
Yeah. Well, anyways, this podcast has gotten off to a happy start.
Yeah, just like I don't have a segue to get into the Predator.
Yeah, well, the Predator is equally not traumatic. It's just it would be better if it were traumatic.
Well,
we could say that the Predator has about as many almost as many problems as Batman v Superman.
I think Batman v Superman was probably. I don't know. I would say it's better than the Predator, but that's like saying anything's better than the Predator. You know what I mean? Like the Predator isn't the worst movie ever, but it's definitely worse than Batman v Superman. That movie was at least cohesive.
I like how we're trying to connect these things, but
yeah.
The Predator, I think, it tries to do a lot less, but it still doesn't do it very well.
Yeah, I have not seen this movie, but honestly, everything I've heard you guys say about it just makes me less inclined to want to see it.
It's unfortunate, really, because Shane Black has returned to the franchise.
Yes.
Shane Black's a very talented writer and director, or at least writer. I don't know. Directing skills, I think, are okay though. But at least as far as coming up with good story and good dialogue and good interactions and arcs and all that stuff, he's pretty good at it, and he's pretty witty too and clever. So you think, all right, we're gonna get some buddy action movie with sci-fi stuff in it. Maybe there's a kid thrown in there for like nice nostalgic purposes and all sorts of stuff. Whatever happened from after the movie was shot to when it landed in the projection booth is where the problems lie, I think. I think the movie got chopped to bits and rearranged and maybe reshot. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Will and I were thinking that the movie kind of felt like a weird compromise between Fox and Shane Black.
Yeah,
you can almost see the studio interference on the screen.
There's a lot of
talking. I have to go for a second.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the Predator. I guess we should give a little more context in terms of like where the series has been and where it's at least prior to the screenings that we went to.
Well, it was the first two Predator movies back in the day, and then the Predators with Adrian Brody and his Batman voice,
which was a pretty fun movie, actually.
I thoroughly enjoyed Predators.
It wasn't grand necessarily. It wasn't, covering new ground, so to speak, in terms of action movies or genre. It was covering new ground in terms of mythology. They went to the Predator planet, essentially.
Predators has one of my favorite title cards.
Yeah,
I'm big on title cards. It's like Adrian Brody wakes up and he's falling through the sky.
He wakes up, he has to parachute to save his life.
And then the parachute opens and he gets to a hard stop, and all of a sudden the boom, Predators fills the whole screen, and it's really badass.
And then there's that line he has where he's like, "I want to find out who threw me out of a fucking plane."
Yeah.
And I was like, hell yeah. And I was like,
conversely, the title card to The Predator was not very interesting. It was almost as bad as, ironically, Batman v Superman. No,
well, actually, yeah, that title card was pretty bad too. That was like a drama movie title card. You know, it was just,
or like a TV episode,
or a TV episode just fades in
into the bottom right-hand corner of the picture.
Red corner in white type font.
Yeah,
and it's just boom, Batman v Superman, and then it goes away. And I'm like, oh, is this an Oscar contender? Is that what you're trying to make, Zach? You know. So the Predator, yeah. After all these years of comics and franchise combinations with Alien or Aliens, however you want to go with that, we've returned, and the sequel is The Predator, which is kind of lazy, I think, to just add to it. Give it either a number or a Roman numeral or a colon and then a subtitle.
Or you call it The New Predator or something like that.
Right. Or, yeah, exactly. Something along those lines.
I don't even know which Predator The Predator is supposed to refer to.
Right. It's almost like X-Men Origins Wolverine and then The Wolverine.
And X-Men Origins is explainable because they were going to do a whole Origins movies.
It's in terms of the Wolverine series, if you want to get into that. It's like it technically starts there, and then I guess it goes into X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, and then the Wolverine.
Oh, are you saying like the Wolverine trilogy has no like conventional naming thing?
Yeah, right. It should be like the Wolverine in Japan, or not like that. That's a bad title, but something that kind of gives you a hint as to what we're watching, not the Wolverine. It's kind of like just whatever. They might as well call the next King Kong the King Kong. You know what I mean? Like it's just put the in front of it, and next they're gonna put Mister in front of everything.
Mister.
You know what I mean? Like it's just. So The Predator, I went into this movie thinking it was going to be fun. It kind of was.
Yeah, kind of
to watch. It wasn't a bad watch. It was just a disappointing watch because we're thinking going into it, okay, more badassery, more machismo, more alien creatures and funny dialogue. More and more of all this, and
it's so like it follows. It takes place during Halloween,
which is a good setup. That's a good setting.
Yeah,
that's a good place to have a movie. Yeah,
it's it's this sniper assassin guy. A Predator spaceship crash lands, and he gets a hold of a helmet and a gauntlet, and he sends it back to his house where his son. Yeah, his son is on the spectrum in some way, and gets the stuff, and then the Predator who dropped it is coming to get it, and then there's also a bigger Predator who's going after the smaller Predator, and a group of army guys on a prison bus that are drawn together for a contrived and not very well explained way. I don't know if you caught anything from that. Like I didn't really get why they were all together.
What I got was that they were. I guess they were there at that particular building for like therapy or counseling or something. Because I got the impression they were all together and had been together for maybe a couple years or months or something. For some,
they definitely knew each other.
Yeah, so they knew each other enough after spending some time together, and that's why one of the guys, what's his name, Nebraska. He explains everything to our sniper guy. And he's like, hey, that guy over there, Thomas Jane, he's got Tourette's. That guy over there.
Nebraska?
Was his name Nebraska?
Oh, I thought you said he's from Nebraska. The movie Nebraska. No, he's from Moonlight.
Yeah, he's the actor from Moonlight, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's quite good in this. I think he would make for a good action star in his own vehicle, at some point. Or just in more drama movies. I think he's a very charismatic actor.
Yeah.
But so that's another subplot, and then another one involves Olivia Munn, who plays a scientist who is on, I guess, contract with the military or with certain military science projects, and has been called in to study a predator, the predator that was caught from the spaceship crash. And now a team of government agents are on the trail and are going to kill anyone that gets in their path to finding out what the deal is with these alien creatures.
Yeah.
See, having explained all of this, I feel completely fucking lost.
Yeah, it's really weird how...
And out of breath, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like shouldn't it be simple? Keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't have to be this many threads, this many complications leading to one convergence. You know, it could just be a simple story, couple soldiers in the jungle. They're there for one thing, another thing comes up, and they're in a whole mess of trouble. Boom, easy story. Plenty of fun stuff can happen in that. Now we got multiple settings, multiple environments, multiple arcs, multiple, you know what I mean? It's just a headache.
Yeah.
And not that Shane Black is incapable of pulling all that together properly. It's just when you're making a movie by committee, that's when the problems come in, and that's when, you know, people who aren't creative, maybe who are making decisions based on focus groups or what's trending and stuff along those lines, or maybe film duration, even when they start playing around with the movie without those people, that should be watching, that should be helping with what you're doing with the cutting. That's when you got some issues with plot holes and stuff, and there's plenty to go around.
Yeah, I think what struck me with this movie is that it's a problem because the characters are kind of fun and they have good chemistry. All the army guys have really good chemistry and they work well together and they're fun together. But every single one of them is Shane Black from the original Predator, and the jokes are not funny, even if their dynamic is fun.
Some of the jokes were funny, like the ones that what's his name, Key.
Yeah,
would say Michael. What's his full name? I always get his name wrong.
Keegan Michael Key.
Keegan Michael Key. That's right. I can hear. Okay. There's an echo on my end that I'm hearing.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Ken's echoing. It's coming out his place.
Ken's got it. Yeah. Okay, so he did a couple jokes with his Tourette's friend, Thomas Jane, and it turns out they were actually really good friends.
Yeah.
So they can kind of mess with each other like that. But which was funny to me. I was like, okay, we have some interesting character moments between these two characters, but why should we give a crap?
I never really got what their thing was, because at one point Alfie Allen's character is explaining what's going on, but his Irish accent that he affects in the movie is so bad, I couldn't figure out what the hell he was saying during that.
Well, basically, the two of them were like buddies in some mission, and that's what messed them up. Like some grenade happened or whatever, and they both got fucked up because of it.
Oh, okay.
And so they bonded over just their own issues, and one can't help joking all the time, the other can't help cussing all the time. So it's kind of like, there's a camaraderie within that. But I liked his jokes with him. I liked it was like, especially the one they had from the trailer about if your mother was a video game, what would her rating be? E for everyone. Yeah, or something like that.
What was the other one that he did I actually laughed at is like, what's the difference between 5 black guys and, like, I can't remember the other thing it was that he said. What?
I forget what the joke was too, but it had something to do with, yeah, you're on the right track.
The punchline was your mom can take 5 black guys, and that's when Thomas Jane went at him.
Yeah, that was pretty fucking funny.
But I didn't like a lot of the jokes I didn't find funny. That one part, some of the stuff I did laugh at was the violence. Like my favorite kill in the movie, it is so 90s and so dumb, and I wish the movie was more kind of in line with this kind of thing, is that the evolved predator fires like a grappling hook type thing at a soldier and impales him to the side of a wall, and then it creates a line straight across the environment, and 3 other soldiers are racing forward in a Jeep with no top, and they're at the perfect level that this cord decapitates all three of them, and their heads just pop off and roll on the ground. And that was a hilarious moment of gore.
That was pretty funny, but then it's undercut by all the CG gore that happens. That's like, it's worse than in Rambo 4. And Rambo 4 was okay in that sense because it was combining practical and CG blood because, you know, just the sheer body count. They have to do CG blood at some point, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, the CG blood in Rambo 4 wasn't that noticeable. I didn't think.
Right, and it wasn't that noticeable. I think part of it had to do with that movie's color grade. You know, it was kind of gray, the look of the movie, you know, and it had this darkish hue to it, so they could kind of get away with doing some stuff in the background, you know, and make it look as real as possible. Of course, there were other scenes where he machine guns people into pieces.
Yeah, the scene with the .50 caliber is just fucked up.
It's fucking brutal and beautiful at the same time. That movie is like fucking great. That's like one of my favorite Stallone movies. If you have to have a favorite Stallone movie,
I legitimately enjoy that. I think that's the second best Rambo movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's great. Yeah, it's really. It's not just, you know, because of the brutality. It's also just a good movie. You know, it's got something to say. But Predator doesn't. And you know, aside from the goo, the green goo that comes out of the Predators, that's okay to be done in CG. But then you got like CG limbs coming off. It reminded me of Suburban Sasquatch in some scenes, you know. And I was like, oh man, why did they have to do that? Come on, just use a fucking dummy limb or something. Yeah, right. Throws the guy's arm at another guy and kills his chest cavity. That was brilliant. That was.
What did you? I didn't really notice too much of the. I like the action. I didn't really have. A lot of people are complaining about the lighting and the editing. I didn't think the editing was great, but I didn't really have a major problem with the lighting. I
didn't have any issue with the lighting. I don't remember ever being like too dark. I know people had a problem with Solo being a little too dim.
Yeah, Solo did have a weirdly dim picture.
But the Predator was actually, you know, it was well lit. You know,
I thought the action was coherent as well. I mean, it was kind of hastily edited, it seemed, but I could kind of.
The problem was the pace. The pace was way too fast, despite the fact that the movie felt like it was a little bit longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
You know, the story was going by rapidly. We were cutting from one location to the next until things converged, and then it was like, you know, one location. But even then, we were cutting from different, you know, people and perspectives, and it was going so fast that you barely had time to absorb what information you were supposed to get out of it. And that hurts your enjoyment of the film. So it wasn't so much it was poorly edited, it was just, I think maybe too much was maybe trimmed or every second scene was trimmed. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it goes along for a bit and then it's really quick. And then it goes along for a bit and then it's really quick. You know?
Well, they cut out a whole subplot with Edward James Olmos, who was the superior to Sterling K. Brown's character.
Oh, really?
They were gonna try to recruit a Predator for army purposes.
Now that's a story right there.
That's kind of cool, yeah. But that's not a subplot. That is a top tier story.
Right, and
that's a good idea.
So the whole movie, you know, you got these character traits. You got the loonies on the bus, as they call themselves.
They go round and round.
Yeah, right. And you got the Jacek Tremblay with the on the autistic spectrum. And
let's talk about that for a second.
I actually had no problem with this. I know. Well, not no problem. I had some problem, but I felt like inherently it wasn't really an issue. It's just they made it an issue by kind of going with the stigma and the stereotype that everyone on the autistic spectrum may be some kind of a evolutionary savant.
Yeah, I mean, autism is a superpower in this movie, and then not to mention, I think that the depiction of this character as being on the spectrum, I got the sense that Shane Black logged into Wikipedia, Googled Asperger's, and then picked out the trendiest traits of the spectrum and incorporated them into the character.
Now, Tremblay's performance was okay. I had no issue with that, and I didn't really have an issue with some of the more direct depiction of his disorder. You know, if you want to call it that, him walking around, putting the chess pieces back on the table. You know, that was just establishing he's really good with remembering things and placing things in order, and also that he can figure things out really quickly. You know, so I was like, okay, that's fine. But then he's given this technology, this alien technology that he has no frame of reference with, really, except for video games. But that not even that is a frame of reference to this foreign interplanetary tech.
Yeah, it's a hologram keyboard that he's typing on and like zipping around. And
but at first I thought like, okay, he's just goofing off. Because
like, no, he's fucking work. He's doing work.
No, he's doing work. He's understanding what's going on. I'm like, well, not even a kid on the autistic spectrum, even if you believe that they're savants, which they're not necessarily, they're just people.
Yeah.
But if you believe that they're super intelligent, not even they could necessarily figure out a foreign, literally alien language off the bat. You know,
I mean, there are cases of people with autism who happen to have like a focus that they're really good at, but to treat it like a superpower or something it's
doing a disservice, really.
Yeah.
This kid's autism it basically boils down to he's awkward but incredibly smart. And for the first half of the movie, he hates loud noises.
But then the rest of the movie, he's okay with loud noises.
He's totally fine with loud noises, except for one scene where everybody is deafened by the loud noise. But other than that, he has no, like at the beginning of the movie, you know, he's walking around muttering and like holding onto the side of his head, and then at the second half of the movie, he's sprinting around like an action hero with everybody else. Like they just forgot about his problem. Like, and then later in the movie, at the end, you know, when everything's kind of been resolved, sort of, he's like the super tech guy. He's working at the fucking military, like developing alien tech. He fist bumps another character, and it's like it's really weird. Oh, so he lost his autism. He had a vaccine for it or something. You know, he got cured. Yeah, it's just cured. Automatic, or he just needed confidence. Yeah, you know, it's like, really tone deaf. Like, you know, it was. I didn't have I didn't have a problem with Tremblay's performance of it, but I did have a problem with the writing of it, and that's where, you know. I do want to say that I had a lot of respect for Shane Black for his almost complete restraint in making Olivia Munn sexualized. Yeah, there was only one scene, and even in that scene, he wasn't really focusing on any of her curves or anything like that, or her figure. It was above the neck. Okay, she was naked, right? Yeah, she was supposed to be naked. I mean, I'm sure in reality she was wearing like something below the camera. But in the scene in question, she's basically going through a process where they have to like clean the body to get out of the experimentation zone. You know, what do they call it? Decontaminate. Decontaminate, right. And so she's like frustrated as hell because she wants to get out of there because the predator just woke up, the one they're examining. And she's like, oh, God, I got to go through this process. We're going to take off my clothes, go through this. Yeah. And meanwhile, she's running away from this thing. So she's naked, and she's cowering behind a kind of like a divider. And the predator sees her finally and looks her over and then decides to go on his way. Yeah. And that is never explained. She mentions it once as a throwaway joke. I think it was supposed to be a reference to Predator 2, where the Predator spares a girl because she's pregnant, and you see that. But Olivia Munn's character is never mentioned as being pregnant. Well, right, that might have been a deleted scene, maybe with the something that got cut, because a lot of stuff got cut from the movie. My assumption was that they did mention that this particular predator has human DNA, and maybe he saw a naked woman who was cowering as being very vulnerable. So maybe he related to her in some way because their DNA is the same, and he's like, oh, she's kind of like a familiar body type. So, and she's naked, and she's
cowering. She's not a threat to me. So maybe I'll welcome. But none of that is explained.
Maybe he thought she was like a Terminator that just teleported in, and he doesn't fuck with that.
Yeah, that could be the case. Yeah, but later in the movie, she does bring it up, in an offhand comment to the sniper guy. She's like, "Oh, by the way, the Predator saw me naked." Well, I guess he da-da-da-da. I forgot what she says, a joke, but she says a joke, and I thought, that's it? That's all that amounted to? Because they spent a lot of camera time on her and focus on her being naked and afraid and hiding from the Predator. They spent a lot of time on this, considering the fact that the movie is fast-paced.
Right, but again, you only see it. You only see it from the shoulders up, so she's not sexualized at all. I mean, she's not sexualized
at all. So there's no reason outside of her attractiveness. You would think like that would be the reason. Like, okay, we're going to sexualize her. No, they took that away. So what's left?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that they did that. I mean, because when you think you have X-Men Apocalypse, you have Mordecai.
They did nothing with it after that.
Yeah, it's just so. I mean, it's just like Olivia Munn is a character, and she's a girl, and guess what? She's not a sex object like Olivia Munn happens to be in pretty much every movie she's in.
Right.
But she wasn't here, so I just admired that restraint.
But
especially in an R-rated action film.
I didn't appreciate how it was unexplained though. In
terms of a contextual thing for the film and plot wise and stuff, it's another relic of how garbage the movie's plot progression is and structure. But I mean, in terms of just the way that they handled Olivia Munn as a person, that
was okay. That was
for the boys, but they just didn't. So that was good.
That was good, yeah. But Munn does have her moments to shine outside of that too. She's running, she's chasing, even though she's a scientist, and this is never explained either. It's not like she ever says, "Oh, I used to be in the army," or "I had."
Who cares?
Instead she's just like chasing after this Predator, running across the roof of a bus, jumping onto the bus, running across the roof of a building. She's got a tranquilizer dart gun. She's badass. She'll fight you. She'll grab the gun in case she feels threatened. She'll do this. She'll do that. And I was like, all right, this is cool, but wait, she's a scientist.
So does she show you the money?
What?
Does she show you the money? Is what he said.
Money.
No.
No, she never does.
Although in the first half of the movie, she's either, according to the rest of the characters in the movie, either stupid or helpless. Because when she's on top of the bus, she shoots herself in the foot with a tranquilizer dart.
Well, that was an accident because she was on the bus.
It was, but then the man has to save her, And then it was kind of funny, like in the hotel room, you'd think that, all these characters have an awareness that if this woman wakes up in a hotel room surrounded by 8 different guys, that it's going to be kind of weird. So they have this kind of admittedly pretty funny, awkward moment where they're trying to make her as comfortable as possible. Yeah. Like they put like a coffee cup next to her hand so that when she wakes up, everything will be okay. And she feels like, oh, she's being taken care of. It's not creepy. And it was kind of, obviously she woke up and automatically was creeped out.
Right.
But
Thomas Jane couldn't help himself. His character had a Tourette's moment where he said like, eat the pussy.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? What did you just?
And she's like really offended and kind of put off by him. And then later he says something else really vulgar through, from his Tourette's. And then she kind of gets this look on her face like, oh, that's his deal.
Right.
Which, I think that was kind of like Thomas Jane's character having Tourette's and yelling cuss words is like a super 90s joke. Yeah. Which makes sense because it's Shane Black. And I feel like he's trying to make this movie kind of like that, but maybe that's why this movie didn't work very well, is because it kind of pulled from a lot of different action comedy movie stylings. Like it kind of was really wacky and stuff. Like there's predator dogs that are nobody ever really comments on that being a thing. It's just kind of like, oh yes, the predators have dogs and they also have dreadlocks.
and then one.
Like it's not, nobody's like, holy shit, that dog has fucking predator jaws, and
it's like, oh, it's just a predator dog.
It's a dog it's an alien dog. Let's get on with our day.
It's got dreadlocks, and the fucking one of the dogs gets hit in the head or shot in the head, and then it becomes their friend because its mind is all fucked up.
Yeah,
because it has a concussion or something, and now it can be like their attack dog, but instead of being an attack dog, all it does is all they ever do with it is throw something in another direction, and then it chases after it. They just want it to go away.
Yeah.
They never really use it to their advantage.
Yeah, it's weird. Like again, there's a whole lot of this movie that feels
This
like
movie's fucking weird.
yeah, it's just kind of a mess. It feels like it was written in a certain way. Then the studio had some things that wanted to be taken out and changed, but the original version of the script didn't really change except for what was removed. And so you have elements of the original story that just kind of exist there and don't mean anything in the broader context or go anywhere. Because there's stuff that happens that you feel like it's going to build up to something, but it just never does.
Yeah, no, it
so
never
weird.
really does. And then the main plot of the movie, which I guess is why the Predator was being chased to Earth and why it was coming to Earth, was to save humanity from climate change and to protect it from the Predator. But then it turned out, I guess we're getting into spoilers with this, but it turned out he was actually not saving them from climate change. He was saving them from the other predators by giving them a predator killer suit.
But the other predators were coming to Earth because of climate change to absorb human DNA and evolve with that and then like I don't know, live on Earth or something.
Yeah. So it was all very confusing. I was like, wait, what? How is this going to stop them from...
all the revelations in this movie are explained in one line. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, we have this super predator suit.
Do they actually say climate change in the movie?
Yes.
Because here's the thing: the first Predator, there was just a random, comment about, it only happens, when in the heat of the summer, and then in Predator 2, they do make a thing out of the heat, that.
heat wave.
Yeah, that there's a heat wave in LA at the time. So, which is fine, and it kind of insinuated climate change to an extent without it going perverse detail. I think addressing that is just it's less interesting.
I mean, he's basically Sterling K. Brown's character is like, oh, how much longer are we going to survive on this Earth? 1 generation, 2, like
just
that. Yeah, that we're not. That the Earth is not going to be habitable in a couple of years. But then they don't really make that a thing at all, except for that one line. It's just little threads that are mentioned once and never expounded upon.
Another thing that was funny too, just to, I guess, before we wrap this particular conversation up, is okay. Sterling K. Brown is like he's basically the human antagonist until the hunter predator translates his own dialogue and says, "You guys have a couple minutes. I'm giving you a head start before I start killing you." And then the rest of the humans team up, and they're like, "Okay, we got to team up to kill this thing." And then the sniper guy goes over to Sterling K. Brown and is like, "Okay, after this is done, you and I are going to dance," which means he's going to fight him. And then Sterling K. Brown, his response is to kind of give like a manly smirk, and then just slap him on the shoulder, like, "Yeah, bro, let's do this."
Well, he has a line too. He's like, "Yeah, I got my shoes picked out and on."
Yeah, right.
Got my parachute pants on.
So I was like, dude, if this movie kind of had kept that weird, stupid machismo, that's funny but also dumb at the same time.
And it's also literally everything Predator is about.
Right.
Yeah. Stupid machismo.
If it had been that throughout the movie with a little bit of like, weird Halloween stuff and, alien stuff and whatever, I think I would have liked this a lot more had it been more level-headed in terms of its goal. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not very good.
No, it's not a good movie.
It's actually like, it's pretty funny because when I was watching the movie, I was like, you know what? I'm having fun watching this, but I'm pretty sure that once it's over, the more I think about it and discuss it, the less I'm going to like it. And this has not been truer for any other movie I've seen this year. Like I'm getting the Bill Arsenault Justice League.
Oh right, yeah. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, what did I do? I gave it 4 stars at first out of 5 on Letterboxd. Yeah. Then I gave it 3.5. Then I think I jumped it back up to 4, but before I quickly said, okay, no, it's a 3. And then I went down to like 2, and I think I settled at 1.5 or 2.
Yeah,
I don't remember which one I settled.
I think it went down to 1.5, then back up to 2. But
yeah,
it's just funny that it's like the more that we talk about Justice League, the more shitty it got.
Right. It was like X-Men Apocalypse. I gave X-Men Apocalypse initially a good review.
What was it you said about it? Like you had some like a legitimate pull quote for that movie.
I think basically what I liked about it was the aspect of the younger generation of X-Men coming up, and it reminded me of the animated show in a way. In terms of like its cartoonish goofiness.
Okay.
But the more we talked about it, the more I thought on it, the more I sat on it, I was like, okay, this is just a big clusterfuck. I can't excuse the rest of the movie for this one aspect that I liked.
Yeah.
Same with Jurassic World. I gave that movie 2 good reviews. And then I was like, okay, on the third look, this is not a good movie. It took a while. It took me a little bit longer, but I really should have noticed on the first one that this was a bad movie. It's better than Fallen Kingdom, from what I hear.
You haven't seen Fallen Kingdom?
Or maybe Fallen Kingdom is better. I don't know.
Have you not seen Fallen Kingdom?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
You should see it. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I hear it's really weird.
I enjoyed it more than the first one, because the first movie's like, oh, we're making an adventure movie. It's a remake of the franchise, basically.
This one's just off the rails, crazy.
Like, I mean, I think I talked about this when I saw the movies. Like the evil dinosaur is like a cross pollination of DNA from the Indominus Rex and Blue the Raptor, and you activate him by firing a laser at somebody that syncs his heartbeat to the raptor, and he goes and kills him. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
And it takes place in a fucking castle or something.
It's like this gothic mansion, and
right. And they're selling it to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and
James Cromwell is the other millionaire who funded Jurassic Park besides John Hammond.
Never heard of. Yeah, right.
Yeah, has never been referenced.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild, Bill. I think you would love it.
Wild Bill,
like, ironically, you'll get a huge kick out of it. It's completely bonkers.
Okay, I'll definitely. I think we have a copy of it somewhere. I think my brother bought it on DVD. So, is it on DVD yet?
Should be, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It feels like the most expensive made-for-TV sci-fi movie that you've ever seen. Like, it's that kind of movie.
Anthropophagus versus Tyrannosaurus DX4.
Yeah, exactly.
Bullshit, yeah. Which leads us to
a simple favor, which there's no context or segue to that. We're usually pretty bad at the context of segues, but
Blue the Raptor shows up in Paul Feig's mystery film to kill Anna Kendrick.
Nah, that doesn't happen.
Oh, okay.
But
so what's this movie?
A simple favor, which it's weird. It's Paul Feig, but Feig?
Feig?
I think it's Feig. Yeah.
No, that's the Marvel guy.
No relation. One less E.
So this movie follows a single mother named Stephanie, played by Anna Kendrick, and she befriends another mother. She's not single. This other mother. It's played by Blake Lively, and her name is Emily. And the two hit it off really, really well. And the Emily is like a shitty person. She is clearly an alcoholic. She's got a really dirty mouth. And a few times Stephanie goes over to Emily's house and they hang out and drink martinis. And there's a really great shocker moment early in the movie when Stephanie goes to Emily's house, and hanging prominently in Emily's house is a very graphic painting that looks like the painter was a couple of inches from Emily's crotch and drawing her like straight up, so she's standing over the painter. And it's a very graphic vagina shot of Blake Lively, painting of Blake Lively, and it's really, and this painting like factors into the backgrounds of many shots in the house, and at one point it's in somebody's car in the passenger seat as she drives to the HOV lane. It's a really fantastic joke that is not really ever. I mean, it's mentioned a few times between the characters, but it keeps showing up, and it's a pretty funny running gag. But anyway, both the mothers have kids, and the kids have play dates. And at one point, Emily calls Stephanie and wants a simple favor. Is the title of the movie? Yay! And she's like, "I need you to pick up my kid, from school and keep an eye on him for the evening. I've gotta race off and take care of something. My mom or my mother-in-law broke her hip, and I've gotta fly off to such and such to take care of her."
Don't you love it when movies drop the title of the movie?
I fucking hate it. It really really sets me on edge.
I'll get my revenge and Deathstalker 2.
What are we, some kind of Suicide Squad?
I just want to get out of Africa.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I mean, it's not as egregious in this movie because she's like it's very it's delivered pretty.
It's woven into it. Yeah, right.
It's like, hey, I need to ask you something. Just a simple favor. Can you please pick up my kid? And he was like, okay, that's fine. It's not like, hey, these assholes that wrote the movie wanted to put the title in the script. So it's not too bad, but still, I really do not like that trope at all.
Seriously, I was referencing it, but I don't know if you guys. Have you seen that Upright Citizens Brigade sketch on the titular line? Okay. I'm just tired of all this Star Wars.
Oh, man.
So after it's been a couple of days and Emily has not shown back up, and Stephanie's starting to get worried, and she starts poking around, and Stephanie's husband, who is a failed author, and they start chatting, and he's like, well, she's very secretive, and there are a lot of moments where it's like, oh, did she tell you that? Do you know she's super manipulative? And then like different things start getting unveiled about Emily's character that are very, she's clearly a shitty person who uses people and lies to them. And I don't know how much you guys want me to spoil, so I'll refrain from saying too much unless you.
Well, yeah, let's just go with the spoil.
I'm probably not.
I won't spoil everything, but there is one thing that happens that kind of feeds into a lot of stuff later on. Is a short, maybe a little more than halfway through the movie, Emily's body turns up in a lake.
Oh.
So she's dead. So Stephanie Stephanie starts to do more research and figure out who Emily was and more about it, and then eventually she starts up a relationship with Emily's widowed husband. And there are little things like that happen, and so eventually this movie just turns into a mashup of comedy, mystery, and erotic thriller.
Ooh.
And it actually gets really fun. Like a little more than halfway through the movie, I was like, okay, this is starting to lose me a bit. I don't really know where this is going. It's kind of feels like it's just going off on a weird tangent, and then in the final act, it kind of brings it all home, and it gets fucking ridiculous. At a certain point, I caught on to what the movie was doing, and I started keeping track of the plot twists. I would say there are at least 8 to 10 plot twists in this movie. It's so twisty, and by the last 20 minutes, it's a fucking dog pile of plot twists. It's like, oh, they're working together, and they double-crossed them, and he double-crossed her, and she double-crossed him, and then it gets completely crazy. And
but is Emily dead throughout the whole thing?
No.
Oh. What?
Other stuff happens, but
they revive her body. She becomes like a Frankenstein monster.
No, I mean I can tell you what happens if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Emily has a twin sister.
And
the twin sister is the dead one. And then another twist is like, but no, we were triplets, and it's like, oh my god, what the fuck?
You're shitting me. They pulled a triplet.
Well, they didn't quite pull the triplets. Like the third sister died in the womb, but I would have really loved if like, ta-da, like it's a fucking third Blake Lively, and it's
I'm seeing double.
Literally, the only time the twin brother trope has worked for me is, of all things, in Beer Fest, just because they make so much fun of the concept.
Because it's literally the same guy, yeah.
Yeah, and they address it where it's like, and why don't you just call me landfill?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The movie doesn't take the piss quite like that. I mean, like Blake Lively's character, Emily, her twin sister, does look a little bit different, and Blake Lively actually plays them both very differently. And it was actually a really effective performance. They felt like two separate characters. Emily's twin sister, is a heroin addict, and then when she threatens to reveal everything, Emily kills her in the lake and drowns her, and that's where the body turns up. But but the movie still kind of like the twin sister thing is kind of dumb, but the movie is pretty fully aware of how dumb that twist is, so it doesn't take it too heavily. Like most of the movie is really having a lot of fun with itself, especially when it gets towards the end, where Stephanie's character is starting to learn to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more of a standing up for herself, and she's partially evil too and tries to double cross Emily, and then she conspires with the ex-husband or with the widowed husband, I guess formerly widowed husband, against Emily to reveal that she killed her sister. But then she's working with her husband to double cross Stephanie, and then Stephanie mic'd the house to catch Emily, but Emily cut the mics, but then somebody else has
Is this a movie or is this the Days of Our Lives?
It's kind of the Days of Our Lives, but there's so much there are so many twists and turns and just wackiness crammed into this movie that it becomes a ton of fun in the second half. It's just at a certain point you're like, you know what? I'm just going to be on board with whatever they do now. It really is entertaining in the way that it's kind of pulls all together. It's kind of a noir, because there is narration and stuff like that, and it's like the way things escalate is really entertaining because, again, it's at a certain point anything is possible with this movie. There's nothing like supernatural or anything, but they're going to find a way to do something else wacky with a plot twist or something, and it's I enjoyed it quite a bit. There are some things that didn't quite work for it. I think it sometimes it feels like it was a drama that a comedy kind of just wandered into because a lot of the humor doesn't quite work in the style of the movie. It feels more like a Paul Feig comedy with some characters. Like certain characters feel like that improv heavy thing that dominate all of Paul Feig's movies, except for this one. Or his modern movies, and they don't quite work in the context of the story. But it works well enough. It's not really grating or doesn't detract too much from the movie as a whole. It just ends up being like, okay, I can tell that doesn't really belong in the movie. That character should not be here. But as far as the plotting and the way that things progress, there are a lot of really fun things with the plot. There's murder, there's arson, there's conspiracy, there's identity theft at one point. It just gets completely nuts by the end. So it's a pretty solid rental if you end up seeing it. I mean, if you're not into that, if you're not curious about the story or interested in the actresses, maybe not something to go see in the movie theaters unless you have a subscription of some form. But I would totally recommend a rental just to kind of see how it all plays out. You guys have any questions about A Simple Favor?
No, I think. Well, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, not at all. All right. So next on our list, White Boy Rick. White Boy Rick.
White Boy Rick. White Boy Rick is okay. It's okay.
Okay.
And
okay, let's be careful here. Okay. I want to head into
Scarface
racial
impression. That's not racial characterization. That's Scarface.
No, I was going to say it almost sounded like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, jeez.
Let's just go right.
God damn it. Yeah, no.
This movie's okay.
Just no.
White Boy Rick takes place during the early 1980s during the crack epidemic in Michigan.
Sure.
Rick Warsha Jr., son of Rick Warsha Sr., of course. Jr. is played by Richie Merritt, I think, in his feature debut.
Okay.
Right.
His father is
Matthew
played by Matthew McConaughey, which is I just want to come out right now and say that McConaughey's performance is fantastic. It's I think it deserved a better movie than this was. There are a couple moments in this movie that were genuinely emotional and even tear-jerking because of the way that Matthew McConaughey is able to emote. McConaughey.
That sounds like a Native American ritual saying, like a phrase. They say McConaughey.
No.
I went off on a little thing there. Sorry.
Rick Borgia Sr. He sells guns to help support his family. And his son and his daughter. And you asked earlier who plays his daughter, and I will look that up while I talk.
She was in a movie called Growing Up, or it was with Kristen Wiig and one of the Sarsgaard brothers.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was with Kristen. It was like how to be a 15-year-old girl or something. I don't know. It was something.
That's weird.
What?
Now I want to know what this is because that sounds not right at all.
That's not the title. I know that can't possibly be the title, but
it cannot possibly be the title.
Rob Schneider is in How to Be a 15-Year-Old Girl.
Rated PG-13. Okay, so the actress is Belle Powley.
Okay, let me look up Belle Powley.
Anyway, so he sells guns to support his family. He's also
Diary of a Teenage Girl. I was close.
Diary of a Teenage Girl. That's not that close, but
it's not that close, but it's somewhat close. Yeah. But go ahead. Not close.
And everybody's performance is really good. I mean, Belle Powley is really good as the daughter who is addicted to crack, and Richie Merritt is pretty good in his feature debut as Rick. And it's a very understated performance. He does what he's got to do. That he doesn't really try to act around anybody else. He doesn't really have any blowouts or anything crazy. He's just a really solid, grounded performance. Worsha Sr. is also an FBI informant, and the cops kind of turn a blind eye to his arms deals as long as he can kind of point out people who are involved in other worse crimes, especially drug-related crimes, because this is during the war on drugs in the 80s.
I like that. Worse crimes. What's worse than selling guns?
Selling drugs, because thank you, Nixon.
Or Reagan, or whoever, right?
I think it was Nixon started the war on drugs, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think it was Nixon, yeah. Okay. Yep. Reagan amped it up, but it definitely started there with Nixon, yeah.
So the FBI also recruits Rick Jr. to purchase and sell drugs to the local gangs so they can kind of climb the ladder and get those guys. And they even let him keep all the money from selling the drugs, which is great. Good deal for Rick.
Yeah, it's great.
Which is great, yeah.
Wonderful.
So, basically, I'm kind of having trouble going through the plot of this movie because there's a huge issue with this movie. You have Rick Jr. selling drugs. You have Rick Sr. selling guns. You have both of them, working with the FBI to inform them. You have the daughter who's addicted to drugs. You have the crime or the criminals that Rick Jr. works with and their lives and like their empire. And all of this happens in an hour and 50 minutes.
Ooh.
This is a mini series on FX or AMC or HBO crammed into a movie that wasn't as long as Justice League, which was 2 hours. And it is incredibly rushed. The pacing is out of control. It's not like Predator where it runs at a breakneck pace the whole movie and you just can't catch your breath. It's like that, but it also feels like it's trying to do everything at the same time, and stuff was just missing. It's like at a certain point, Rick just goes off on his own and sells drugs, and then that's when the FBI gets him. And at that time in Michigan, if you had sold or possessed more than a certain amount of cocaine, then it was a mandatory lifetime sentence in prison. That is why Rick spent the next 30 years in prison for selling some cocaine. He never hurt anybody or anything like that. And at one point, a lawyer says, well, it would have been better off for you if you had killed somebody instead of selling drugs.
Jeez.
And it's a good line because it kind of plays into how messed up the war on drugs is and how it's so overblown in terms of the consequences. And the last third of the last act of the movie kind of does a lot of that stuff in terms of, Rick's in prison now and, there's some sad stuff with his family. But you don't see too much of his actual. I mean, the trailer says, oh, he's a kingpin. He built an empire. And you don't see that. you see him selling drugs sometimes, and that's it. And there's just stuff they don't show, and it kind of really leaves the story feeling unfinished. Like there was so much stuff they could have shown, and there's stuff you're interested in seeing, but you don't get to see it because the movie's got to finish. And there are some really great moments with the family where they talk and stuff. And the real heart of this movie is the relationship between Rick Jr. and Rick Sr. And those scenes are some of the best in the movie, and their dynamic is fantastic. But the movie has no room to breathe in terms of the overall story because it's like the movie almost figures out that when it's got 45 minutes left, it's like, oh shit, the movie's almost over. So it just sprints to the end, and you don't see any of the really interesting stuff in the latter half of Rick Jr.'s tenure as a drug dealer.
That's too bad.
The movie's got a really good look to it. The music is great. The soundtrack is great. The aesthetic is really cool. I mean, it's wintertime, so everything feels very cold and kind of dead. The movie's got a great look to it. And the performances, again, are fantastic, especially Matthew McConaughey as Rick Sr. It's really emotional. At one point,
I love his delivery. I don't mean to cut you off, but I love McConaughey's delivery in the trailer of "But He Was."
Yeah, and that was not a, it was like, would you believe that a 14-year-old was working for the FBI? And he says, but he was. And that feels like a two lines that were edited together for the sake of the trailer, but that actually was the exact exchange in the movie.
Okay, cool.
Which was, because Rick Sr. knew about Rick Jr. working with the FBI. He didn't like it, but he was okay with it.
A lion doesn't leave the Serengeti.
Yeah. There's one point where Rick knocks up a girl, and
oh shit!
Yeah, Rick Sr. picks up the baby, and he's looking at it, and he's what did he say? He's like, I don't believe that this is your son, because he's so handsome. Like, you think he's gonna it's like, oh, you didn't knock up this girl. She's fucking lying. That he sees his new grandchild, and he's just overwhelmed with emotion, and then. Another scene, he carries his daughter out of a crack house, and that was a really hard scene to watch. And at the very end, he tells his son in prison that he always thought that his life would be even better than his was, and he's sorry that he messed it up for him. And he's crying, and it's just Matthew McConaughey's performance is so emotional. He doesn't have any like crazy things about his performance that elevate it above everybody else, but it's just a very genuine performance that felt real enough to be really, really commanding. So it's a fine movie. I wish it was better because it's got a lot going for it. It could have been really, really fucking great, but it should not have been a feature film. It should have been a miniseries. It's interesting. The director of this movie, I don't know, I'm probably going to butcher his pronunciation, Jan de Mange, or Jan de Mang?
Jan de Bont?
Yeah, I was about to say Jan de Bont.
No, it's not Jan de Bont.
Okay.
It's his first name is Yann and his last name is Demange.
Jan de Ming?
Maybe Domingue sounds kind of right. Anyway, Jan de Ming was being courted for the next Bond film before Danny Boyle got hired. But then, of course, Danny Boyle parted ways with the production because Barbara Broccoli is an asshole. Probably.
God damn.
Apparently, there were disputes over the villain of the movie. Danny Boyle cast the guy in Wonder Woman who was the really suave guy.
Really suave guy.
Yes, he was one of the platoon. He was like super cool. Let me look up the actor
in Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Chris Pine?
No, not Chris. It can't be Chris Pine.
Chris Pine is not a Bond villain.
Well, I mean,
be...
you were saying suave, and I thought his character was relatively.
I'm thinking probably the Egyptian character, right?
Yeah, Samir Said Tegmoy.
Yeah,
was he got cast?
He was different, but it wasn't Chris Pine. It was the other. Yeah, right. Okay.
He's French.
He's French. Okay. All right.
At least the actor is.
Yeah, I forget who he is. Yeah. Okay.
Danny Boyle cast him as the villain in Bond 25, and EON production said, no, we want a Russian villain, or that's how the story goes. So Danny Boyle said, I'm out, and Jan de Mang was courted once again to be the director, but MGM said, "Well, we want to see the final cut of White Boy Rick before we offer you the job." So I wonder if they had their doubts. But in any case, I don't think he'll get the job. There are some other people that are being courted to direct it. Edgar Wright is one. That won't happen.
That would be interesting, but it won't happen.
Yeah, it will not happen. There's a female director who was being asked, and I can't remember what her name is. And there was one.
Jane Dubond?
He just shows up like in a wig.
Please hire me.
Does the full Mrs. Doubtfire? Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Just a full Mrs. Doubtfire.
It was run by fruiting.
Which, hey, Pierce Brosnan's in there, so there's your James Bond connection.
That's
reminds
good.
me that there's the Bill. You've seen Arrested Development, right?
Yeah.
Where David Cross's character dresses up like Mrs. Doubtfire to still be in the family's life, and he cooks sausages. It's like, who wants a banger in the mouth? And everybody knows it's him, but they just kind of play along with it because they know he's hurting. It's Ken, you really got to watch Arrested Development.
Yeah, that's on my list of a million other things that I need to watch.
I know, right?
Goddamn, there's too much show.
There really is.
There really is. Yeah. And
Hashtag white people problem.
And now they might be adding. You heard this, right, about the MCU? Disney wants to on their new digital platform that's coming out next year or the year after, whenever they get around to it. They want to do a low-key show. They want to do a Scarlet Witch show, and they want to have the same actors portray them. Yeah,
it's gonna be crazy.
It'd be like a limited series kind of thing.
A Loki show.
Oh, okay. The other director that I was really excited for that they might do is Bart Layton, who directed American Animals.
Oh,
that would be interesting.
That's actually a pretty. I think out of all of them so far, that's kind of likely. That I could see that happening.
Okay.
The other director who is a female is last name Clarkson. I don't know what the first name.
Kelly Clarkson.
No.
She's getting her own talk show though. That's something. Dead air.
Yeah, I have nothing to say.
Sorry, I'm reading. I'm trying to find this article is not written very. Oh, S.J. Clarkson. I knew it was I knew it was the two initials. S.J. Clarkson, who is directing Star Trek 4, is the other director who they are kind of.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
Although the Voyage Home with the whales.
No, the new. Well, yeah, but yeah.
No. She's going to be directing the next Star Trek. Sorry.
Ken knows. Ken.
I was just being.
Oh, okay.
Of course, she didn't direct Star Trek.
And I think she was going to direct the Black Cat movie or the Silver Sable movie for Sony until they're like.
The what with the who now?
It's part of the Spider-Man universe.
Sony is doing a movie with Black Cat, which is the Marvel version of Black Catwoman.
Yeah.
And
a Black Catwoman.
Black Catwoman.
And Silver. What's the kid?
That was and Silver Sable, who is a bounty hunter or something like that, mercenary.
Yeah, but now they're kind of like, well, is there really any interest?
There's not.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Venom's PG-13, which I usually wouldn't care about, but part of the hype was, R-rated Venom, he's gonna fuck people up, and now it's PG-13 because Sony wants Venom to fight Spider-Man later on down the road, and quote unquote, that would be really hard if we did this movie as an R rating.
What I think is more likely is they know that the movie's going to flop, and so they'd rather give it a chance to flop as a rated PG-13 movie.
And make as much money as possible.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I've talked before on this podcast of what I think of the way that Tom Hardy delivers his lines.
I got a parasite.
I'm a reporter. I found something really bad. It's just... What the fuck, man?
Who knows? Maybe he realized how shitty it was, and so he just decided, I'm going to see how far I can push it.
That's something that Tom Hardy would totally do. I would not put it past him for a second. Your employers are really bad people. Like, he talks like a fucking toddler showing off his toys to a stranger.
Your experiments, they're doing bad things to people. Oh, what are you going to do? You going to kill me too? You threatening me? Sorry, Mrs. H. I got a parasite. Bye.
Oh, I got a parasite. I will say that Venom's voice sounds pretty darn cool. I like the look and the sound of Venom.
I don't like the things he has to say, though. He's like, you're going to be like a turd in the wind.
That's a quote from the comic, though.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, even that.
I like that. A turd in the wind, that's stupid. And I really hope that if that is indicative of the tone of the rest of the movie, like if everybody else is like being as laissez-faire with the dialogue and the wackiness of the movie, I might find myself enjoying the movie, but we'll see. I haven't written it off completely yet. I'm actually going to see it probably opening weekend because I'm curious to see what the director of Zombieland will do with the Venom character.
I hated that last shot in the trailer where the Venom is coming off of both him and the bad guy. And,
really? I thought that was okay.
And they're like just flying in midair as the tar is coming off of their bodies. It just looks like a bunch of lines. Bunch of vertical lines coming off their body.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was okay, but I see why you didn't like that. I mean, I can see that.
Maybe it'll look better in the finished version. I don't know.
So tell us about Peppermint.
Well, I was going to say that Peppermint left a bad taste in my mouth, but Will already stole that. He didn't steal it, but Will, as along with some of the critics, already took that byline. So I will say Peppermint is a fucking sour movie. It's awful. This is one of the worst movies of the year. It offended me.
Oh, okay.
Go on.
Styled as a revenge movie. So Jennifer Garner's character plays a mom, and she's got a husband and a daughter. They're trying to make ends meet. They're below the poverty line. She works as a bank teller. He works as a mechanic. Early in the movie, they're in the parking lot, and the daughter is selling Girl Scout cookies. And then another rich mom comes up, and she's basically like, "You can't sell Girl Scout cookies on my turf." And, they kind of have it out a little bit. Jennifer Garner's a nice mom. She's poor, but she's nice and she cares for her daughter. And Peg is the rich mom, and she's a total bitch, and she has like a white pantsuit and perfect hair, and her daughter is also an 8-year-old version of herself. And, after they're done talking, Jennifer Garner's character is Riley, I think. Her name is Riley. Riley's daughter's like, "You should just punch her in the face." And Riley's like, "Well, darling, that's not always the right answer." And yes, later on in the movie, Riley does punch Peg in the face. And at that point, this movie is so mean-spirited, it's not even funny anymore. But anyway, Riley's husband is going to be a getaway driver for the heist of a local cartel. And they're going to have a birthday party at their house for her daughter. And then at the last minute, Peg calls everybody else and invites them to a party at her house instead, thus ruining Riley's daughter's party. So Riley's like, "You know what? Let's go out for ice cream at the fair and celebrate."
At the fair.
Yeah.
Let's go to where the Punisher's family died.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to where the Punisher's family died. And that's what they do. And at the last minute, the dad calls his friend and is like, "You know what? I'm not gonna drive for this job. It's not worth it. I'm not gonna do it." But the cartel leader decides to send a message anyway. And he sends 3 of his thugs to the fair and in a drive-by kills the dad and the daughter and injures Riley. And, Riley is really sad, obviously. And when she's at the house and packing stuff up, a lawyer shows up and is like, "Hey, you know what? You didn't see anything." You know what I mean? And he hands her a big-ass envelope of cash. And she refuses it. And in court, she finds out that not only is this lawyer working for the cartel and defending them, the DA and the judge are paid off by the cartel, so no justice is served, even though she identified all 3 of the thugs in a lineup. So she then disappears for 5 years and then comes back as a total badass and wreaks havoc and justice upon all the cartels upon the cartel in the area. So this is why this movie is garbage. When you see the 3 thugs are found hanging by their legs from the Ferris wheel at the fair. You don't see this act happen. You just see them hanging there. So there you go. You don't see that justice on them. You don't see that revenge visited upon those thugs. It is then mentioned in passing that the DA and the defense lawyer were found dead in their homes. You don't see that revenge. This is a revenge film with no fucking revenge. It's like characters just mentioned like, oh, the DA was found face down in his pool, and the defense lawyer was also killed in his home last night. Like, all right, cool. Like, who the fuck cares?
Well, it's minimalist, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be. The judge, however, does get a very, honestly, kind of cruel scene. She nails his hands to his desk, tapes his mouth shut, ties exploding rope around him, and then blows up his whole fucking house when she is on the bus.
Oh, wow.
It's like, wow, come on, man. Like, calm the fuck down. It's 5 years ago.
Old news.
Yeah. And she's like, if you can remember my name, then I'll let you live. But obviously his mouth is taped shut, so he can't say anything. So it's like,
right.
Come on, don't be a dick. And she really is. She turns into an asshole in this movie. She's riding on the bus, and then there's this kid with his dad, and she gives him this toy that she found at the judge's house. And, you know, the kid is taking his dad to the liquor store so he can get drunk again. And, you know, she notices this, and then when the dad's in the liquor store, she, like, tackles him to the ground and puts a gun in his mouth. It's like, you're going to take your son out Christmas shopping, and you're never going to drink again, or I'm going to fucking kill you. Then he's like, okay, fine, Jesus. And then she goes up to the guy that runs the liquor store and points the gun at him and says, if you ever sell to this guy again, I'm going to fucking kill you. And then she steals his car. It's like, come on, man. So there are two other characters in this movie, two other main characters, two cops. One of them is the guy who was he was in 10 Cloverfield Lane, not John Goodman. Before you say anything, Ken.
The other guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's in the newsroom too. Great actor.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have assumed John Goodman just because
I feel like that's something you would just say though.
Okay.
John Goodman does not play cop in this movie, although I wish he did. It would make it better. He really wants to take down this cartel, and his partner, it's a famous actor. I'll look it up.
John Goodman?
No.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, John Gallagher Jr.
You have to admit, you set that up.
I did set it up. Congratulations. And then I thought it was him, but I didn't want to say it. John Ortiz.
Oh.
Still a John. Still a John, God damn it.
Yeah. John Ortiz's character is like be careful. So the John Gallagher Jr.'s character, Detective Carmichael, wants to take down this cartel once and for all and stop all the suffering in the town that they have wrought. And John Ortiz's character, Detective Beltran, says, be careful, man. There's somebody on the inside of our police force, and they take down any cop that tries to investigate the cartel. So at that point, I was like, oh, I don't know. The fact that these two characters are having a conversation about this means there's about, I don't know, 1,000,000,000% chance that one of them is the corrupt cop. Because that's how these things always turn out. One of them is going to be the fucking bad guy.
Yeah.
And Ortiz's character is like, look, this is what we found in Billy's locker when he tried to investigate the cartel. And it's like a police badge with a bolt hole in it. And I actually, if you guys don't care about this movie, I will spoil the twist because it sucks.
Yeah, go for it.
Shoot.
So earlier in the movie, Detective Carmichael, played by John Gallagher Jr., goes to Riley and says, hey, we got the guys, and we just need you to identify them in a lineup. And she does, and then that's what causes the miscarriage of justice and for Riley to disappear for 5 years and train in MMA and become a badass with pornographically large guns.
Wasn't Jennifer Lopez in Enough? And didn't that do the exact same thing?
Not quite. That was more.
Didn't she take revenge on her domestic abuser in that movie?
Yeah, that was about that. It wasn't the Punisher.
Yeah, she's basically the Punisher. Anyway, the dirty cop is Detective Carmichael, played by John Gallagher. I have a theory about this. Because you might be wondering why the cop that coerced or that suggested to Riley that she identify the thugs in a lineup, why would he be paid off by the cartel, right? Why would he lead her to identify those guys?
Yeah, why?
There's no reason why, and this is why. Because every single person that gets killed in this movie, besides the white man and child in the beginning of the movie, is Latino. This movie's racist. Ha! Because it's, I mean, of course, all the Mexicans are in the cartel, right? And so that's all the people that Riley kills. She's like, oh, I'm just going to walk into a piñata shop and kill all the Latinos in there.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not exaggerating. There's a huge action scene that takes place in a piñata factory.
That is bad.
It's very bad. And so I think that I truly believe that Detective Beltran was the dirty cop in the first draft of the script, and he was like, hey, buddy, stop doing this because I am non-verbally warning you that you will die. You're my friend. I don't want to kill you or see you get killed if you take this too far. And also I will mention that this script is written by the guy who wrote London Has Fallen. And if you have seen London Has Fallen, you will know that that is the most pro-America, anti-Muslim movie possibly ever made. I think that at one point the screenwriter is like, wait a second, every single character that's evil in my movie is a Mexican. I better make the dirty cop the white guy really quick without changing anything else in my script. I firmly believe this.
Okay.
Because there's no context to Carmichael being the villain. You know, he's helping Riley out. He wants to take down the cartel. He's shown investigating stuff. He questions people. He gets with people to try to investigate what's going on with Riley and the cartel. And all of a sudden, he kills another cop and he's working for the cartel. It's an awful plot twist, but it makes total sense because it doesn't make sense. Does that? It's like...
Yeah, no, you're on the right track.
It's predictable, but it makes no sense. I'll put it like that. It's just fucking awful. Like, it's yeah. Later, there's also in the movie, like, she pretends to be a homeless person in Skid Row, and Skid Row has no crime because she's the Avenger of Skid Row, and there's a mural of her on the wall with angel wings made out of guns because everybody loves her, even though nobody knows who she is. And
you mean the angel wings that are on the poster?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the poster, I'll give you guys just a guess what the name Peppermint, the title Peppermint, comes from.
They say it in the trailer. It's the ice cream that her girl likes.
Yeah, it's the ice cream that her daughter. It's her daughter's last meal. It never mentioned it again, ever. Like the word peppermint, I don't believe is ever spoken in the film. In fact, the line, "My daughter has peppermint in her eyes and her whatever," like that line that she says, I don't recall that being in the movie.
Well, yeah.
So it's the action is okay, I guess. It's not bad. It's not good. It's there. It's kind of, there's the sense of space and blocking of the scenes is kind of weird. It's not really that coherent. But I mean, I would say that's the least of my concerns of the movie. It also does that weird Tony Scott thing where a frame of a shot lingers over a new frame, so it's kind of like fading in and out and shaking a little bit. That's how I would describe it, I guess. Like an afterburn of a frame.
Yeah.
And then there are two of the things really quick that bug me about this movie that could have gone. The first is that Detective Carmichael, in the 5 years later part, he is shown in his car. He opens up his coffee cup, pours some whiskey into his coffee, and then he gets out of his car. It's like, oh, it's been 5 years. He's really frustrated by the cartel and the justice system, so he's an alcoholic now. He's this noir, hard-boiled, no longer a rookie cop who wants to take down the cartel, but he's an alcoholic because he's frustrated. They never, ever mention that ever again in the movie. And he's the bad guy, so who cares? And then also the Skid Row being, this protected place now. You have a couple characters who are like, they see Riley as this protector of them. And, that's kind of cool because you could kind of see the changes in Skid Row of them being less crime-ridden and, protected by her. But then they don't really expand on that either. Like, there are these two extra plot lines that would make way more interesting movies that they just kind of mention once and never go back to. It's bizarre. The movie really feels like a first draft script that just kind of got made into a movie without any edits, except for the change of the corrupt cop, which I would love to know if that was actually true or if the screenwriter is just that stupid. For as far as Carmichael being the dirty cop with no explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish towards the end, she finally faces off with the cartel leader. And, after all the people she's killed, the cops want her, and they want her bad because she's killed tons and tons of people. And he laughs at her. She's like, haha, you're going to go to jail for longer than I have, than I would. And she's like, we're not going to jail. And she shoots him up, and then the cops shoot at her. It's like, wow, that's actually kind of cool that she cared so much about killing him that she doesn't care about dying. But no, she survives and breaks out of the hospital, and that's the end of the movie. So,
Okay.
It's to set up the sequel that will never fucking happen.
Yeah, I know. And I was really hoping this movie would be like really trashy fun and something I could laugh at, but it's
Peppermint 2, spitting on Spix.
Wow.
That's what it's leading to, isn't it?
I probably would be. I didn't. It's a racial slur.
That's a bad one too.
Yeah, that's a really bad one.
Although I would, based on what you told me, I would suspect they would go for that.
They might. It really does. Like, people are saying, like, oh, you know what? It's not that racist.
I'm driving it home. That's how far they would take it.
No, they would. In the movie, I really do believe this movie is racist against Mexicans because it's like, all of the political turmoil now against the border and stuff like that. That this really seems to be playing into that fear that's being stirred up because I am legitimately hard-pressed to think of us. There are 3 Caucasian characters die in this movie. The corrupt cop, the dad, and the daughter. And everybody else that gets gunned down is Latino.
And they're bad guys.
They're all bad. There's not Ortiz's character is the only Latino protagonist in the movie. Every other Latino character is a gang member with a shitload of tattoos and lots of guns.
Oh, so this is a David Ayer film.
I almost forgot that. Thank you for reminding me. This is a David Ayer film. It's actually a Pierre Morel film, director of Taken.
Yeah. Right.
But this is distinctly a David Ayer flavored, racially insensitive film.
That's so bad. I don't know.
What, flavor?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, what I said, and then combining that with David Ayer flavored.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes on Reddit. It was in regards to Suicide Squad, where somebody said, as a Latino, I find David Ayer's obsession with Latino gangster stereotypes politely offensive, or I'm politely offended by his obsession with it.
I wouldn't be politely offended. I'd be straight up offended by it.
Well, I know. I think he said politely offended because it's like he was being elegant about it because David Ayer cannot possibly be. But yeah, this movie is a fucking disaster. I think I might have hated it more than AXL.
Oh, an Axel? Yeah.
Axel, yeah, because at least Axel I could make fun of. This movie is just not only a colossal failure as a film, but a downright insult as something that I should be expected to enjoy, and also insulting as something that's touted as a revenge vigilante film that has very little of either.
And it's also just a piece of shit.
It's a piece of shit. I fucking hate this movie.
Well, why don't we go ahead then and up the mood a bit and talk about Mandy?
And what a mood it is.
Yes.
What a mood Mandy is. Oh,
I can't remember what website I was on, but I was so happy that I found this. It's like as a banner ad for Mandy. It's like, find a location near you, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna find a location near me. So I clicked on it, and I found out that it was playing just 30 minutes away from me in the theater. Oh. So I bought my tickets on the spot over a month ago.
Nice.
And I got to see it in theaters. But I'll let you guys take the floor for this one because I've been talking about movies I saw.
Yeah, so Mandy is playing near me as well. Actually closer than 30 minutes. It's like maybe 15 minutes away. Possibly 20, but...
Okay, all right, you're better, all right?
Well, okay, yeah, but...
You know what? It was 5 minutes away from me, okay? It moved theaters, and I went to the one that was 5 minutes away.
Okay, all right, you're better.
Why is this a competition?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just.
But he's just fucking with me. But there is a joke
because I said it was 30 minutes, and Bill's like, "Well, actually, mine was 20 minutes away."
Actually, mine was 15 minutes away. So no. So I had the opportunity to check it out on opening night because this movie had an interesting release. It's limited, but it had a kind of a wider release on its one Thursday night showing before its limited release. And on that Thursday night showing, it was like, get your tickets now. It's going to be like a one-time only thing. You're going to see a Q&A afterwards with Nicolas Cage. broadcasted from whatever theater in California, and so on and so forth. And I was thinking, okay, I could go to this. But then I found out the theater that I was playing at, it's a good theater, but it's one of those dine-in theaters that's kind of luxury and upscale, and it costs a lot of money. MoviePass doesn't work with it. I don't use MoviePass anymore,
Really?
but MoviePass doesn't work with anything annianymore. But I mean, when MoviePass was good, it didn't work with this theater.
Okay.
So this theater has a lot of nicks on it, in my opinion. That's not to say it's a bad theater. It's just I don't. If I can go somewhere else, I will. And so I chose not to go to that one. Another theater in town was playing it, and I wanted to go see that, but it had no showings that were convenient for me. So what I had to do ultimately was get it on Amazon. And I didn't feel too bad about this, but I really wanted to see it in a dark room with people, with other people in there, so we could all experience just how utterly insane and beautiful the movie is.
Mhm.
And indeed it is. I was
Yes.
thankful that I was able to pause the movie a few times to take a bathroom break without missing anything. But and I was able to also kind of think on the images some more while I was taking care of business. But that being said, this movie lives up to the hype and then some. This movie is hyped to the moon. Like almost every review I've read of this is like, you will not believe your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this or ears. You know, this movie is the real deal. It's cinema, top notch. You know, and it is. They're right. They're like, this movie's metal as fuck, and I was like, it can't be that metal. Or maybe it is metal, but maybe it's metal without purpose.
Yeah, you
And
can.
It's hard to really reconcile like all those things into one coherent, cohesive, and good movie. And somehow this movie does that very well, and it's almost transcendent in a way. As a viewer watching it, I was like, I'm on another plane of existence right now.
Mhm.
You know, I'm in another realm. I'm with it. You know, and it wasn't just because of
I'm hip.
I'm hip. Yeah, it wasn't just because of the little cult plot. It was also just everything that happened and where it takes you, what it's making you feel. You know. So Ken, tell me what this movie is about as best as you can.
Well, actually, as to what the movie is about,
Yeah, the plot.
The plot is incredibly simple.
It's very simple, isn't it? Yeah.
Nicolas Cage and his, I guess they kind of insinuate, live-in girlfriend, I would say, because they never officially say they're married. But Nicolas Cage...
There's
What's
one
that?
part where one of the bad guys says your hubby, meaning husband.
Yeah. I think they were
But,
married. Yeah.
Well,
I assumed they were
they
married,
have different
but
last
it's-
names. His name is Red Miller, and Mandy's name is Mandy Bloom.
Yeah, so it might not be marriage, but
They're one of those progressive couples that don't.
Yeah,
and
maybe
it's
that's-
according to the Wikipedia description, they call it his enamored girlfriend.
okay.
All right.
So basically,
So either way,
basically the
they're-
love of his life.
right, the love of his life, and the movie early on sets up that they sort of live an unconventional existence. They live out in the woods. She works at what looks to be like a service station.
He's a
And-
lumberjack
Yeah, he's a lumberjack,
with a
and
mysterious past, supposedly.
so this is basically Joe. No, I guess he wasn't a lumberjack in Joe, but he worked in
He was
trees.
he was a handyman, yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, his business in Joe was like poisoning trees. So similar
that's
deal,
even-
not
yeah.
cutting them down, poisoning them. So anyway, so they're in love, and then some cult leaders come in, and the cultists beat
Led
the
by
shit
a-
out of Nicolas Cage,
And
and
they're led by a fake messiah, a false messiah, a false
a
prophet.
false messiah who is a a false messiah whose inspiration comes from the fact that he's a failed artist, that he's a failed musician.
He likes the Carpenters, and he writes songs, and
He has his own psychedelic folk song that is garbage.
that's about him, right?
That's
Oh,
all
yeah.
about. Yeah.
That was a funny ass scene.
That was great. I mean, he's got.
But it was a horrific scene too.
He's monologuing about himself while a song that he wrote plays.
His dick's hanging out and everything, and he's like, "Be gentle with me," and she's like, "You wrote this song?" He's like, yeah. And she's like, "And it's about you?" Yeah. And then she starts laughing horribly in his face, and he's like, "Shut up! Don't look at me." You know, the whole plan is ruined for him. You know.
And this is where we get into spoilers for those who haven't seen the movie. Stop listening now. Just watch the movie.
But it's also in the trailer.
It's also in the trailer, but it's kind of hinted at, but it's not. In the trailer, they don't really flat out say this is what happens to Mandy. It's more like something bad in general happens.
See, even though I saw the trailer, it was a while ago, and I didn't pay enough attention to catch the plot points, so I had no idea that Mandy gets killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's
they burn her alive. Actually, they or at least they burn her body.
They put her in a burlap sack that's soaked in gasoline, and they set it on fire. Yeah. Which is just about the most fucked up way I think you could kill someone.
Although I thought it was interesting is that they don't really the director Panos Cosmatos really shies away from exemplifying the suffering of Mandy specifically.
Well, the bag is twitching like fucking crazy.
Right. But like what I'm getting at is like, oh, this woman is being murdered and it's horrible for her.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they kill Mandy, they set her on fire, and then
it's more horrible for Nicolas Cage. That's the focus of the scene.
Right.
The focus of the scene is his pain as he's watching the love of his life slowly dying in a painful manner.
I thought it was interesting because it's very feminist that she's laughing at naked Linus Roach and his stupid ass song, where like and then they kill her, but not in a way that this same woman is being punished for what she did. It's more like a catalyst for Nicolas Cage to go crazy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I loved her. I loved her laugh too. It was both defiant and horrifying.
Yes. Well, just about everything in this film up to this point is slightly unsettling because of or completely unsettling because of the way it's shot.
The movie, from the way it's shot, the movie has a slow pace for the first hour. Or actually, for most of the movie, it's a slow pace, but which is good. But for the first hour, it's very slow. You know, we're kind of taking in the atmosphere and the environment. We're understanding the relationship between these two people and their home life, and maybe getting a little bit of a backstory between the lines of their conversations.
And all of this is done with incredibly weird cinematography that I don't think I've seen a movie with this much psychedelic weirdness since A Field in England.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I can't think of another movie that's as just arrestingly weird.
It has a Jodorowsky kind of feel to it.
Field of England does too, actually.
Yeah, Field of England too, yeah, but it puts its own stamp on it. Like, it's definitely inspired by Jodorowsky, but
maybe with a little bit of Nicholas Winding Refn, considering how much fucking neon's in the movie.
And how many triangles, too. There's quite a few triangles in this. So it's a little bit
and triangles, that's both of them. Jodorowsky and
Refn, yeah.
And Refn.
So I guess you could throw Panos in it, too. But Panos puts his own little, seal of approval on it, his own little signature on all this. So that's the first hour. The remainder of the movie is Nicolas Cage recovering from his injuries. That's like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then the rest of it is literally him forging a weapon, an axe from fire, and then going on a quest to kill.
If this was the commentary track to Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, "Oh, this is the scene where they're forging the sword."
This is where the people say. When I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, this is where people say the movie is metal as fuck. But when I thought on it some more, I was like, the whole movie's metal as fuck.
Yeah,
there are so many references in this movie that you can catch. Some are more obvious than others, like the number 13. Where they live is Crystal Lake.
The irony is, while this movie is metal as fuck, there's not much actual metal in the movie. All the music is either progressive rock, psychedelic, folk. You get Johan Johansson's electronica score,
which is great. It's a great score. It's amazing.
Might be his best score.
Yeah,
it really.
Which is like we say that every time he puts God rest his soul. Every time he put out a new score, he's like, oh, it's his best score. No, that is like he just kept upstaging himself.
He's just kind of tops himself.
Much more expensive scores that he'd done for much more expensive movies still don't quite fit as well as this does. This is just fantastic.
Yeah,
this movie reminds me of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, not the movie but the show, in that it has a lot of respect and love of metal music, despite the fact that there's no metal music really, very, very little in the movie itself. It's more like metal music culture. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, because Mandy wears she's got a Motley Crue shirt. She's got a couple other,
right. That and the movies, the environment, the landscape is ripped from the cover art of a vinyl record of a metal band.
Oh, totally. There's
almost every shot in this movie could be a cover to a metal album.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah. So this movie takes inspiration from all of that.
Have you seen an issue of Heavy Metal Magazine?
That's what I immediately thought of. I was like, it's like Heavy Metal Magazine, especially the little cartoon interludes that are like his little nightmare dreams.
Yeah.
So the first hour is the setup, is the establishment of this world, of these relationships, and of the villains, and how the villains are indeed a threat because they're legitimately fucking crazy.
I really loved their introduction scene.
Oh, how it was basically like passive aggressive and straight up aggressive banter.
No. Before that, when she first sees them driving down the road, like the whole movie is red hue, and you get
it slows down.
Yeah, and this is really creepy. Like Johansson's score in this moment is so creepy, and then you see the shot of all the cult members, and then all of a sudden you get the title card slowly sliding in, "Children of the New Dawn." And a lot of people say that the first half of this movie is slow and boring, but I thought that the way that first half built dread was so effective. Like
exactly.
That game, I own the movie now. I bought it on Amazon when I got home from seeing it in the theater, and I've watched the movie 1.5 times since I bought it. And each of those times, it does not fail to just send a chill down my spine when they are introduced.
Yeah, the movie really envelops you into this mood, and it all begins with the wonderful intro, credits set to the King Crimson song "Starless," which is one of their more haunting songs. That I described it in our chat earlier as a acid-washed melancholy.
Yeah, which actually. I read about that song, and I think when it first got written, most of the band really didn't like the song at all.
Yeah, well,
they kind of just threw it at the end of the album that it was on.
Well, that's the thing. There are actually 2 versions of the song because they weren't fully satisfied. Their first album that it was on was called "Starless and Bible Black," and that was the name of the song. And then they re-recorded it for their album "Red," and that version is the one that you hear in the movie. Both versions are good, by the way, and you only heard part of it because this is like a 10-minute long song, but
like 12 and a half.
Yeah, right. But
the movie is just this incredibly purely cinematic vision. Like, it utilizes all the tools that are given to a filmmaker, and then somehow Panos is able to go even further by almost by virtue of his ideas, and where he wants to go with the story. I want to say that this is probably Nicolas Cage's best performance since Bad Lieutenant.
I would say.
Well, yeah, probably.
It's not just because people are going to say, "Oh, it's because he goes insane," right? No, not really. It's not just because he does go crazy in the movie, but it's not because he's going crazy that it's one of his best performances. He has these moments where he's in warrior mode and he's just staring off into the distance, and it's it's so haunting and scary. He's almost become Michael Myers.
So Nicolas Cage actually talked about his method acting on an interview with Esquire.
Yeah,
Especially for his freak out moments, which he actually does take offense to people that memify his performances, and turn it into like a goofy thing, because he takes his art very seriously. Is that what he does? Is that hours before filming a scene, he will think of an emotion or a memory that really breaks his heart or makes him feel emotional or angry in some way, and he keeps it to himself. He will not tell anybody about what he's thinking or what this memory is. And he kind of psychs himself up until filming, and lets the emotion of that memory or feeling totally wash over him, and then he lets it just build and build and build until it's time to film the scene. He just unleashes all that emotion at the same time for that scene, for the famous Nicolas Cage freak out.
The nouveau shamanic is
yeah, right.
And yeah, he here's the thing. I think the reason why people like to make jokes about Cage's acting is because they don't understand. There's this class of acting that's out there where you try to be as realistic, like human realistic as possible, and that's not the only form of acting that's out there. There's a wide range of types of performances, and Nicolas Cage has a much more operatic approach to it. His emotions are raw, unfettered, and they're way, way more immediate than you would see in a normal everyday, say, conversation that people would have. His performances are big because that's the kind of performance he delivers. That's what he specializes in. You would go to Nicolas Cage when you're looking. That's why I think he's underused in a lot of movies, because movies like Stolen or Season of the Witch, where he doesn't really have that much to do emotionally. It just doesn't. It never clicks.
Feels wasted, yeah.
But meanwhile, you have a movie that's, I would argue, Drive Angry as a script is no better than Season of the Witch is. But Drive Angry is a much better movie because it gives him a chance to really be crazy and really push his emotions to the height. And when I say crazy, I'm not trying to insult what he does. Craziness is an element of his performance. The raw emotion is taken to this incredible level that you just don't see. Actually, Joe is a great example of him doing that from a more subtle perspective. Joe is a much more subdued performance of him, but it's no less fiery in its own way. It's just, rather than playing a character who has explosive temper, he plays this character who keeps a lot inside and doesn't really let it out. And when it comes out, it's brutal, but it's not. For the most part, he's a very soft-spoken character, and he does that in a way that's no more or no less big and impressive to me.
I do want to point out the script for Season of the Witch did not feature a scene in which Cage drinks beer out of somebody's skull.
Right, yeah. Okay.
No, I'm just saying, Drive Angry is objectively better in every single way than Season of the Witch.
Oh, okay.
Although the script is not particularly that good. It's just the performances really sell it.
Although I do have questions about, based on what Nick Cage has said, I do have questions about the Wicker Man.
Oh.
What's in the bag? A shark or something? That's the nuttiest line I've ever heard in a mainstream horror movie. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, Mandy. Oh my god. I actually was, the expectations were so high. I was prepping myself to find something wrong in it. that on a personal level that I would be like underwhelmed by. And I thought I almost found it around the 30-minute mark. There was like, I don't know, it wasn't the slowness of it. It was just maybe the theme of it at that point. And I was like, no, give it some more time. It's building, so I was patient, and indeed it fulfilled every expectation and every establishment that everything that was establishing, it paid off. What would you say are your favorite scenes and or shots of this film?
The most powerful shot in the film is the scene in which the Jeremiah Sand, the cult leader, is talking to Mandy and trying to basically seduce her with his
trying to get laid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the shot of like his face when he's giving this big speech and how it slowly morphs into her face and then back is so... How it was accomplished baffles me.
Yeah,
because it's seamless.
Awesome.
You cannot see like the trick that goes into it.
Yeah, it was really astonishing.
That was quite crazy and scary at the same time. Like scary from a technical standpoint in terms of, like you said, how do they achieve that? But also scary to me in terms of Silence of the Lambs when Clarice first meets Hannibal and Hannibal's just standing there. He's prepared for her. It had almost the same kind of impact to me. It was really weird. I wasn't legitimately like terrified by the movie, but I was having panics kind of watching some of it and thinking back on it. My favorite shot was when Nicolas Cage, Red, his face is covered in blood. He's wearing the vest, and he walks into the chemist's lab. And the chemist starts talking about his tiger and how Nicolas Cage has been wronged, all that stuff. But all the while, every time they cut to Nicolas Cage, his eyes don't leave the chemist.
Yeah.
He's just stuck on him, and his face is stuck in that one position. It's like he's in a trance the whole time, And I guess that makes sense from a story standpoint because he takes one little finger dip of whatever concoction those biker monster warriors were taking, and
LSD,
like a high form of LSD or something, and he goes almost completely off the rails in terms of losing personality and possibly losing memory. Like he almost becomes a different person from
because they say that those demon bikers were they drank a whole thing of that stuff, and that's why they're so fucked up and crazies, because they kind of went onto a trip and never came back from it.
Yeah. But it's scary too on a character standpoint, because the further he goes down this path of murder and revenge, the further he's going away from potentially from the love of his of Mandy, But the funny thing about the movie is, by the end, it's almost like he regained that love somehow, not just through killing. But it's like he regained some kind of spiritual love in a way. Like I got this feeling that he was on like a weird philosophical kind of journey, even though it was a journey of murder and drugs, and it was a trip. But go ahead.
I got a sense that it was that I was always there. He just lost it for a second. So I was watching a podcast. I think it's called Loyalty Cup. I'm immediately really on board with, because this is the first video I saw of them, and it was great. They mention offhand that in the opening scene of the movie, when Red's getting back onto the helicopter, his coworker offers him a beer, and he refuses it. And after Mandy dies, he runs to the bathroom and finds the bottle of vodka, which he had out of sight, out of mind until he needed it. And then also throughout the movie, every time he comes into contact with a new drug or substance, he tries it right away. The LSD, the cocaine, the cigarettes, everything that he finds, he's like, yeah, but I'm going to fucking try this. And so it's like kind of like he might have had a past as an addicted person of some sort. And that kind of pulled him away from his love for Mandy, or Mandy saved him from that addiction. And then at the end of the movie, he's completed his journey, and Mandy is, quote unquote, reunited with him in the car.
Right. But at the same time, while they're reunited perhaps in spirit, he's he's almost like a different person too. You know,
But yeah, he's
because
covered in
of this,
blood and he smiles at her and it's this creepy ass smile.
right? Because of this experience, he's completely transformed, and we don't know where he's heading now. Not just down the road, but also in life. He could be lost for all we know. He may have regained something, but he's lost other things too. And so this movie's got a lot to make you theorize and think about. You know,
one of my favorite shots was the shot of the tiger roaring against the moon, the backdrop of the moon.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh, Red's about to turn up, and it's like now you know shit's gonna kick into high gear because he's fucking ready.
My favorite overall scene was probably, and this has to do with the lighting, but not just the lighting, but just the writing too, was when Red finally confronts the cult leader, Jeremiah, in that underground bunker cave. And again, just another wacky ass setting that's really, really evocative. He confronts him, and the light goes from blue to dark. Blue to dark. You know, it's almost like there's a light that's swinging either way, like on a pendulum, and it's like it goes one way very slowly, and it comes right back around to give some light, and goes right back to bring in the darkness again. And they just go through the scene and they cut the scene together as if the light wasn't really playing a factor into it, as if they were treating it separately from the acting and the writing that was going on.
By the way, I just pulled up YouTube just out of curiosity to see if you're interested. The full Jeremiah Sand song is on YouTube, and it's called "Amulet of the Weeping Maze," which is such a psychedelic rock.
It's such a bad name too. Yeah, right.
It's like it's so up its own ass with that title.
Did you get the Abraxas joke? Where he's like, "Do you have the knife of Abraxas or something?"
Yeah,
yes.
The horn of Abraxas.
I was like, oh man, the horn of Abraxas, right?
And it's got its own strobe effect. Like it has its own contained strobe effect.
Yes.
Right. It's like some fucking. I was like, who the fuck would follow this cult? It's a bunch of idiots and crazy people. You know, but
I like that there's that other guy who was kind of fucking around with the window on the RV while they were waiting for the bike to show up.
I had the captions on, the closed captions, and every time he'd fuck around with the window, it would say "whirring window" or "window whirs" or something. He was the guy's mouth was always open.
Yeah,
like, I was like, is this guy inbred? What the hell? You know?
Oh, probably,
yeah, potentially inbred people. Yeah. So, yeah,
I wanted to mention like the use of eyes in the movie. Obviously, you know, the Jeremiah and Mandy's eyes kind of morph into each other during his monologue. One of her eyes is a little different from the other, and then the other girl that that Jeremiah bangs regularly, apparently, her eyes I found extremely intense as well. I'm not sure what the movie really means in terms of the use of eyes. And you mentioned, Bill, you know, his Red's eyes are fixated on the chemist during that scene. There's a lot of focus on eyes in this movie, which I haven't really figured out why that is or what it means, but it's interesting.
It sort of reminds me of Sergio Leone's focus on the face. It's almost fetishistic.
But I think it goes beyond that because each of the characters who have a focus on their eyes are uncharacteristically intense. Like the other cultist girl, her eyes are extremely big and dark and almost and like transfixing. It's such an odd effect.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Cheddar Goblin?
I thought that was almost an unnecessary break.
No, I thought that was brilliantly funny because it was
funny as hell, yeah. But I almost felt like it almost took you out of it.
See, to me, it was great because you had this moment just before it of complete and utter despair, and that this comedic moment happens, and you watch as Nicolas Cage is just watching it with no emotion, and basically what it does is it's one of the few, quote, realistic moments in the movie where when you go through a traumatic experience, you're going to occasionally like run into things where the mood of what you're seeing or experiencing is completely alien to how you're feeling at that moment. And so watching it is like this weird, just completely out of body experience. Cause and Nicolas Cage just sort of says to himself like, Cheddar Goblin.
There's a Cheddar Goblin Twitter account now.
Oh God.
So apparently Alamo Drafthouse had a gag where the macaroni and cheese was on the menu, but when you order the macaroni and cheese, they bring you a box of Cheddar Goblin. People weren't really sure what was going on until they
I have to admit, I would love to try some Cheddar Goblin.
It's pretty good. There was one moment in that Cheddar Goblin commercial that kind of creeped me out. That was when the Cheddar Goblin was looking directly at the camera, and he was just slightly above the table, his neck and head were, and he was kind of like hovering, and he was like rising above the table, and he was just looking at you like it's almost like the Cheddar Goblin's expression changed from being like I'm the Cheddar Goblin to fuck you, I was like,
that was like an homage to Apocalypse Now, wasn't it? When he rises out of the mud.
Oh, you mean like that? It could be like that. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You could be right.
I'm looking to see if the Cheddar Goblin commercial is on YouTube, because that would be awesome.
He just like looks at it like Cheddar Goblin. So I got to see most of the Q&A after the movie.
Okay.
And it was pretty interesting, like actually it turns out that Panos actually tapped Nicolas Cage to play Jeremiah at the beginning.
Oh, that would have been a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what would have been a mistake.
I think he could have pulled it off, but I like what he's got going.
Yeah.
Nick Cage was like, no, I want to play Red and not Jeremiah. And Nicolas Cage is so fucking weird. I love him. He came out wearing this is at like 7 or 8 o'clock in California time. He comes out on stage wearing sunglasses, black leather pants, and like a gold leather jacket. And it's clearly the pants that are not very comfortable, because once he sits down, he like spends the next 20 seconds adjusting himself. And they're asking, the Q&A was Panos, Nick Cage, and Linus Roach, who played Jeremiah. And they asked, both the actors, how they got into acting. And Nicolas Cage was, well, when I was 4, I would sit on a carpet in front of the TV, and it was like a magic carpet. And I would watch the TV and think how I would get in there with the little people who were more interesting than the people that were surrounding me. And he's just talking like it's like how mystified he was by the actors inside the TV. And it's just, it makes you wonder sometimes how genuine Nick Cage is, or how much he's fucking with us as for their performance art.
Yeah, I mean, that's very possible.
What else there was? I know that Panos wrote this around the same time as he was writing his first film, Beyond the Black Rainbow. And he said that if Beyond the Black Rainbow is an inhale, then Mandy is an exhale.
Oh.
In terms of the themes, and he said he wanted the themes of this to be a lot bigger than Beyond the Black Rainbow, and some more of a breather. Because I haven't seen Beyond the Black Rainbow, but apparently it's really intense and obtuse.
You know what's pretty awesome? When you pull up the Jeremiah Sand Amulet of the Weeping Maze song in YouTube, the first song that's recommended after that is Goodbye Horses.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you mentioned, Bill.
Silence of the Lambs, right.
Silence of the Lambs. So I just thought that would be a good thing to point out. And also, there's a second Jeremiah Sand track, apparently, called My Journey, and it's 17 minutes long, and apparently it's his manifesto.
Nice.
Which, by the way, it's brilliant because there's actual basis behind this. Charles Manson was a musician, and a frustrated musician, to the point where there's actually a couple of songs of his that have been recorded and covered by artists. Like his song "Look at Your Game Girl," I'm pretty sure was done by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like weird, and his was also bullshit folk. And I say that as a fan of folk music, I can point out bullshit folk a mile away.
I loved. So my audience in the theater wasn't quite as high in the movie as I was, but there are a couple moments where everybody really let loose. One of them was when Nick Cage, Red, he snapped that biker's neck and got that crazy look on his face. The whole theater blew up when that happened. I thought they were going to do this at the other scene. Like, I really blew up at this scene where Red sets down. He sees the chainsaw on the ground, and he sets down his axe and picks up the chainsaw. And the other guy sees him, and he picks up his chainsaw, but he comes from behind an object, and you don't really see it until he's all the way out from behind the object, where his chainsaw is like 3 times as long as Red's chainsaw. And I kind of got really excited. It seems like, yeah, chainsaw fight. And that scene was fucking great. But I thought it was weird is that my audience didn't love the movie as much as I did. I think they were expecting something not quite as bizarre as Mandy and something a little more traditionally wacky Nick Cage. Because one couple down at the end of my row, they're like, there was hardly any dialogue, and when he wasn't talking, he just looked robotic. Well, somebody missed the point. Not to sound like an elitist, but
when I hear someone complain that there was hardly any dialogue in a movie, to me, that's just a sign of someone I don't need to pay attention to.
I'm going to go home and watch Infinity War.
And Infinity War was good, so but that's a different kind of entertainment.
Yeah. I mean, it's Infinity War is good, but it's not as good as Mandy.
It's not Mandy, no, not at all.
Infinity War is.
How about that death scene where after the chainsaw fight, he pulls the guy down by his neck on the motorcycle chains, the biker chains.
Yeah,
he pulls him down, and his stomach gets eviscerated on the chainsaw. And it's like a lawnmower death. He's like, and it's just going through his body. You know
what's interesting? I just realized this is he kills the lady that Jeremiah hangs out with a lot, the older lady who was really enamored by him, but not on screen. So Mandy is not directly shown burning. The woman the younger woman that Jeremiah hangs out with is spared, and the older woman is killed off screen.
Yeah.
I thought I just realized that.
There is not a lot of on-screen violence, being honest.
Against women, especially.
Against women, yes.
It's interesting. Yeah. I know that a lot of what Panos was doing with the movie is trying to dig at toxic masculinity. Like, that was one of his main themes in writing the film, is to really eviscerate Jeremiah as the epitome of the toxic male, and really kind of show him for being a piece of shit. But at the same time, he avoids direct violence on screen against women as well. I don't know. It's weird how he kind of styled that without being directly with an agenda, I guess. But I only thought about it after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're. I see the cut of your jib, sir.
Yes.
All right. Well, we've gone quite long today.
A little over, yeah. Not by much, but a little.
Not by too much.
So we will reconvene in the next week. There's some interesting new releases coming out, and
Life itself is coming out, and I am fucking excited.
For that garbage.
It looks like shit, and I cannot wait.